South Florida, this is Headliners, only on CBS News Miami.
Hello there and welcome to Headliners. I'm Elliot Rodriguez, now only on CBS News Miami. A Miami Beach neighborhood is hit by a string of car thieves, and one thief so bold he walked into a family's home to take the keys. CBS News Miami's Morgan Reiner took a visit to the neighborhood near Nautilus Middle School.
Neighbors here tell me that in the last month, there are at least 4 car thefts that they know of, and now they're warning everyone to be on the lookout. On Tuesday afternoon, when it was still light out, David Silverman says someone walked into his home while his wife was upstairs.
The dog was going crazy, but my wife didn't really come down because the dog sometimes barks at pretty much anything that walks through the neighborhood.
Butter was right to bark this time. He says the intruder took the keys from the front table and drove off with their Range Rover.
You do feel violated for sure, but hopefully this is going to help other people to take some precautions that they're maybe not taking. You're thinking like, oh, my keys are hanging on a rack somewhere and nobody's going to come in my house when I have a dog, or it's broad daylight, and they don't care.
They filed a police report with Miami Beach police, but the car has not been located.
It's a quiet neighborhood. It's a nosy neighborhood. I mean, people look out for each other's houses. There's rings on cameras on most doors. They just don't care.
Peter Hamilton and his son Mo live a few blocks down from David Silverman.
My wife woke me up and said, "Where's your car?" And I said, "It's in the driveway." And she says, "No, it's not."
On Thursday evening, his Ring camera caught 2 people wearing Joker masks and gloves getting dropped off by a BMW and then hopping into his BMW.
The other one comes in, sits in the passenger seat, and the reason for that, I found out, was the person in the passenger seat was the individual that ripped out the mobile tracking.
He says Miami Gardens police recovered their car in a parking lot, but no arrests made.
These guys are going to keep going and stealing more cars, and they're probably not going to get caught.
And in the same neighborhood, this Ring camera caught an unmasked man hop into a Jeep. He spends time hot wiring the car. This family did not want to go on camera, but they said the police did recover their car, and this man did get caught. So remember to lock your cars, lock your house doors, and to be on the lookout. On Miami Beach, Morgan Reiner, CBS News, Miami.
Well, this month, 18 new laws went into effect in the state of Florida. One of them was HB 919, also known as the Florida Homeowners Association Bill of Rights. But what is now in effect is a pared-down version of the original bill. CBS News Miami's Yvonne Taylor joins us from Kendall with what you need to know about the changes.
HB 919 was a 60-page bill when it got to Tallahassee, but what was approved as a law at the state legislature was reduced to 17 pages.
One of the most ambitious projects in regards to attaining more accountability and transparency.
State Legislator Juan Carlos Porras was the sponsor of HB 919. Hammocks community, which was in the news because of allegations of corruptions, emerged as a ray of light for HOA and condo associations.
The intent of the bill is still there.
Well, it was not approved and we expected.
Anna Danton lives in the Hammocks. She paid elevated maintenance fees and was instrumental in the arrest of 5 people at her HOA.
That these corrupt boards have a support system between the vendors that assist them to stay in power.
So what's the ideal scenario?
To make them responsible for their participation, not having to go to a lawsuit.
We asked State Representative if any violators of the law would face felony charges.
At the moment, there's nothing higher than a misdemeanor. I know in the original bill, we did have some felony charges.
Who got involved in there to change this?
Right. I mean, obviously, we had a lot of differences, especially in the Senate. I think there's a lack of an understanding, of the topic of HOAs and condo fraud.
Transparency and conflict of interest. HOA officers and directors are now mandated to disclose any activity that could be perceived as conflict of interest.
That also stayed.
So what did not stay?
The main aspect I think that did not stay, like we mentioned, was this statewide task force as a sort of hotline for residents to be able to call and investigate some of these HOAs and condos.
In Kendall, Yvonne Taylor, CBS News, Miami.
If you're among the millions of Americans with federal student loan debt, time is running out. After a 3-year hiatus, payments are due again starting this month. CBS News Miami's Terry Hornstein spoke to a financial expert and has some tips for those who might be worried about this.
I've spoken to a lot of people over the last few weeks who say they're very concerned, but the first thing to do is not to panic and take a look at your budget and your loan.
I'm paying it all by myself, but I have 2 jobs right now, so it's helping me.
First-year college student Enzo Paso is working hard to pay for tuition at Miami-Dade College.
Yeah, it's really expensive.
Enzo hopes to transfer to a 4-year university when he finishes, but he's worried about student loans.
I'm actually worried about that, but I mean, it's something I'll stay, like I've just started college, so I'm in my first semester, so I have still kind of 2 years to figure it out.
Enzo, like tens of millions of Americans, is concerned about those loans and student loan debt.
Everything's getting really, really expensive. And it's hard, especially for someone that just moved here.
Those who are already paying student loans back got a break during COVID. But as of last month, interest started accruing again. And as of this month, payments are due. And we live in a very different world today than we did 3 years ago.
Inflation is high. We've seen home prices go higher than ever. This is happening. This is not going away. Student loans do need to be repaid. And missing those payments will ultimately affect your credit. So you need to explore what fits best in your budget, and that's why you need to look at all the different options on the student loan repayment plan to see what best fits into your budget.
Jonathan Barrett of Barrett Financial Solutions says there are options out there for those who owe big.
The best option is obviously the standard repayment plan, where you're paying it as you're supposed to be paying it over 10 years, but a lot of people can't afford to do that. So what you want to do is you want to reach out to your provider to seeing what options you have.
While it is possible to refinance, Barrett says it isn't always the best plan. There are several ways to pay back loans, including setting up an income-driven repayment plan, a graduated payment plan, or some will qualify for an extended repayment plan. Worst case scenario, if you can't pay at all, you can go into forbearance or defer your payments. But it all comes at a price.
Your interest still accrues during that time. So you'll pay the most over time if you defer your loans.
And Barrett says for students like Enzo, keeping a close eye on your finances will help you in the long run.
And budgeting is very important. A lot of people who've built their budget over the last 3 years might not be prepared. This is your financial security. You do need to research your best options for you.
There is another option called the SAVE plan. It went into effect this year, and it is worth checking out if you do have student loan debt and are concerned about it. We have tools on our website for you, including a student loan calculator for you to check out. In Miami, Terry Hornstein, CBS News, Miami.
When we come back, see how a program in Wilton Manors is helping possible hate crime victims find their safe space.
From South Florida, this is Headliners, only on CBS News Miami.
Welcome back to our show, and thanks a lot for watching. I'm Elliot Rodriguez. CBS News Miami uncovered low-income families in Broward County wait longer on repairs and renovations at their children's schools. That's despite the district budgeting more money to spend on schools with more low-income students. CBS News Miami reporter Joe Gorcho has a first-hand look at what's happening inside our schools.
A roof collapsed, debris scattered. In March 2021, James Rickards Middle School's Media Center was under construction when disaster struck.
Never expect that the roof would start crumbling down.
After the school collapsed, Broward Schools budgeted more than $60 million the following fiscal year to replace it. Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh is the Broward Schools Facilities Task Force chair. She believes the project should have been appropriately funded years before the school crumbled.
It's even worse than a Band-Aid approach because it's not even like they were re-roofing in recognition of the structural issues with a plan to fully address them down, as soon as possible. It was just completely ignored, and then the roof collapsed.
A lot of my schools in the East have deteriorated.
Nora Rupert has served on the Broward School Board for more than a decade. We visited several schools in the district she represents, still needing millions in repairs, like Crystal Lake Middle School in Pompano Beach. Some students, like Peter Torso's daughter, learn in portables as he shares problems inside the brick walls.
Ceiling tiles that are in disrepair, air conditionings that don't function, stairwell damage.
Video from inside shows caution tape blocking off seats in its small auditorium. auditorium. We see holes in damaged ceiling tiles. A bucket catches water leaking from drinking fountains.
We expect our children to soar in their academics and in their development, and yet we need to have them in an environment that mimics what the outcome that we want.
Rupert says the 2014 bond funding repairs needed more oversight, a priority list, and an implementation plan.
9 years of waiting on top of that, and it's a disaster. And quite frankly, it's shameful.
So I look down and my pants are full of pictures.
Board member Debbie Hickson took time to paint walls at a school needing love. Broward Estates, helping a local organization's effort to initiate projects to support underserved schools' basic needs.
My own personal opinion on what happened with the bond is that they did what was easier first, which kind of made sense, but those were all the newer buildings. The east side of the county is the older part, the west side, those are newer buildings.
Projects would get prioritized sometimes by who the board member was, where the school is, and the difficulty, the degree of complexity involved with the project.
How was that able to happen, where priorities were shifted?
I can only speculate. Would be other board members had better relationships with decision makers.
Governor Ron DeSantis called for a grand jury following the mass shooting in Parkland that claimed 17 lives. It looked into school safety measures, branching out to investigate other problems in Broward schools, including how the district spent the bond program dollars on school repairs. The grand jury report issued in August 2022 found smart bond program mismanagement. Desperately needed roofs are not getting put on schools. Money is being squandered. A generation of students is being taught in worse conditions than they were promised, and the board is responsible. The governor removed 4 board members last year. The report recommended keeping Rupert and current board chair Lori Alhadeff. Should be obvious that their attempts to hold the superintendent and his district staff accountable have been routinely and openly thwarted by the majority of the board. The report outlined project delays and cost increases. Schools like Stranahan and Fort Lauderdale waited years for work. Construction is now underway to build a new cafeteria 5 years after it was put in the budget for only a renovation in 2018.
I'm frustrated. I'm pissed off. I'm not going to get used to it, and I refuse to get used to it.
On August 22nd, newly hired Superintendent Dr. Peter Licata expressed disappointment in current school conditions during a Broward Schools workshop.
I want to make sure that people knew that I was not happy with that.
Licata sat down with us to discuss what he had seen after walking the hallways at different schools within the district.
How do you address that inequity?
We understand that some communities are more vocal than others, which is fine. But we also have to speak up for the parents that don't speak up or can't speak up. And that's part of looking at that data. Those are the schools we're focusing on right now. They're started. They're for several reasons they've stopped from previous administrations, and some of them they don't make sense to me.
Challenges remain with only $118 million left in bond funds and using additional capital funding to help finance projects.
I did the history myself. There was 97 projects done in the Smart Bond over 9 years. 97 total projects and closed. My board has asked me to complete 152.
Wait a minute. So 97 in 9 years that have closed out, and there's still 152.
Yes.
That they need you to get done in 2 years.
2.5.
2.5. Yeah. That's a short window.
Sure it is. Is it impossible? I don't know. I'm going to try.
Less than 3 months on the job, he says he's creating a project priority list.
We're not going to let anything else influence that other than what's best for that community, what's best for those children. Schools are in some of our hardest hit neighborhoods, and we want to make sure that we're focusing on them first.
And that sparks optimism for parents like Terso.
In the conversations that I've had, it's clear that children are above politics, and that's what gives me an intense amount of passion and optimism.
Joe Gorcho, CBS News, Miami.
More than 24 businesses in Wilton Manors are helping hate crime victims when they need it the most. They're taking part in the Safe Place program. CBS News Miami's Ted Scouten shows us what it's all about.
I have been chased from bars to my car. I have been beat up. I've been raped.
Social worker Misty Alicea knows firsthand the sting of hate crimes and harassment. She explains for some in the LGBTQ+ community, going to the police station to file a report is not easy.
It's very much easier said than done, especially when you feel like you're a part of the community that the police doesn't approve of. And Not saying that that's always the case.
Wilton Manors police are well aware of that sentiment and are trying to make it easier with the creation of the Safe Place program.
If they have concerns or issues or questions about how to report a crime, they have places they can go in order to report that crime and feel comfortable, feel safe.
Look for these stickers on more than 24 businesses in Wilton Manors, letting victims of hate crimes, discrimination, and harassment know there's a place for them to go if they're uncomfortable going to the police department, like here at the Pride Factory.
We have the stickers on the door that let them know that we are a safe place and that they can take refuge here if they need to. SunServe
CEO Tony Lima is head of one of South Florida's most well-known social service agencies. He hopes the Safe Place program will make crime victims more comfortable coming forward.
We can help to be that bridge. We can call the police for them, sit with them. The police come in, have a conversation, and we're there basically holding their hands.
So far, 27 businesses here in Wilton Manors are taking part in the Safe Place program. If your business would like to get involved, you can contact the Wilton Manors Police for information as well as training. In Wilton Manors, Ted Scout, CBS News, Miami.
When we come back, a lesson in life today for some local middle school students, not from their teacher, but from some Miami Dolphin players and cheerleaders. Stay with us.
South Florida, this is Headliners, only on CBS News Miami.
Welcome back. I'm Elliot Rodriguez. The Miami Herald is a new executive editor, and he grew up right here in South Florida. His story is one of immigration, working from the bottom and now rising to the top ranks of one of the nation's leading newspapers. He shared a story with CBS News Miami's Tanya Francois.
30 years ago, Alex Mena was answering phones, taking baseball scores at the newspaper he now leads. Today, he still answers phones, but it's in his own office and as the newspaper's executive editor.
Alex Mena's story begins in Hialeah, but his journey to get to South Florida isn't as simple to tell. It started at 11 years old, on his father's back, as they fled Nicaragua to avoid being forced into the military.
My father and I don't know how to swim. But we needed to get across, so my father told me to get on his back, and, we were crossing, Rio Grande. And I still remember the stories that my dad said that, the water got up to his chin.
Along the way, the Menas faced danger, but there was no turning back.
We saw, people in uniforms. I can assume it was Mexican police or military that came in and took our coyote away. I mean, they beat him, for what it looked like to me, 11-year-old's eye, to death.
It was 1984 when Mena crossed the Rio Grande to Hialeah. By 1992, Mena was a graduate of Hialeah Miami Lakes High School. He went on to Miami-Dade College, and that's where his passion for journalism was sparked.
A professor, David Mervis, was the advisor at the Falcon Times. That's the Dade North student newspaper at the time. He saw something in me. He saw, I guess, a drive, a willingness to work hard.
3 months later, in February of 1993, the Herald needed a clerk.
I'm doing box scores for, NFL games, for baseball games.
For 30 years, including a 2-year stint at the Sun Sentinel, Mena would climb.
I got the opportunity to become the assistant sports editor for Broward high schools. And that's when I started saying, maybe I can be the deputy sports editor someday. Then I become deputy sports editor, and I said, well, maybe I can become the sports editor or the 1A editor, or the production chief or the news editor, and I became all of those things.
And now he's even more.
I want to be known as the person who made sure that we profile the people who make a difference, in our communities.
Mena says just being able to make it in Miami makes him Miami proud.
That's my Miami story, a Nicaraguan immigrant who marries a Cuban daughter of an exile family. It's Miami.
Mena says in the short term, his goals for the Miami Herald remain the same. That's to hold elected officials accountable and continue to do the hard news readers are used to. The Miami Herald and CBS Miami are news partners. In the newsroom, Tanya Francois, CBS News, Miami.
Some local middle school students were surprised when a couple of Miami Dolphin players showed up to share a special message with them. It was all about promoting inclusivity, acceptance, and mental and physical well-being. CBS News Miami's Maribel Rodriguez reports that's what the NFL and the Dolphins are striving for in the program aimed at young people.
special treat for students at Madison Middle School in Northwest Miami-Dade when Miami Dolphins players and cheerleaders paid them a visit to have some important conversations.
As someone that struggled with mental health, it's really important for me to put myself in a position to give back and just talk to the people and the kids, the youth, the future of America, boots on the ground, to just speak to them the importance of just being a friend and supporting our friends and our people that are around us, especially those that may be going through a hard time.
Dolphins players Chase Winovich and Jeffrey Wilson, along with Sierra and Lexi, took the time to sit down with the students and share their own experiences dealing with inclusivity, respect, bullying, and building positive relationships.
I learned multiple things about bullying, gossip. I feel like that was a really main cause in this community, and it should be really resolved. So that's why I really wanted to embrace the fact that I learned that today.
Today's visit, part of the Character Playbook, an initiative sponsored by the NFL.
Yeah, the interaction with the kids today was awesome. It seemed like there were so many thoughtful responses that, for the most part, a lot of the kids they already seemed like they knew that bullying was a thing, that they've witnessed different occasions where it happened, different examples. But like I said earlier when I was speaking to the crowd, it's like it's just about having the courage to actually do the right thing.
Oh man, they're very bright, man. They're full of energy, man. I love them, man. They kind of remind me of me and the kids I was around in my school that I went to when I was growing up. So to come back, to bring that back home, it's a beautiful thing, man.
A lot of takeaways and lessons learned from students. That small gestures do go a long way, and that is something that really all of us should always keep in mind. Maribel Rodriguez, CBS News, Miami.
Dolphin fans for life. And thank you for joining us this half hour on Headliners. As always, keep it right here to CBS News Miami for up-to-the-minute breaking news and weather 24 hours a day. Make it a great one.